If you've ever found yourself stuck between a hard past and an uncertain future, then Psalm 29 might be the psalm for you. Psalm 29 is smack dab in the middle of Psalms 28 and 30. You may have been able to figure that out. But Psalms 28 and 30 are both psalms where the psalm writer is going through something very, very difficult, very troubling. There are lots of enemies, there's lots of pain, lots of worry, lots of frustration. But then right between those two psalms is Psalm 29, which is a pretty good psalm of praise, reminding us that there is a way when you're stuck in that very, very hard place between a hard past and an uncertain future. There's still a way to find ourselves in a good place. And the way that we do that, of course, is focusing on God, which is what Psalm 29 does for us so well. In particular, Psalm 29 seems to try to bring to mind for God's people a lot of the things that God did for the Israelites when he was rescuing them from their years of slavery in Egypt, leading them through the waters of the Red Sea, setting them free from Pharaoh and his army, leading them through the wilderness, all those difficult things, which is why verse 1 tells us right off the bat to ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. In other words, to give credit where credit is due. Remind God, even in addition to reminding ourselves, of all the times God showed his glory, God showed his strength. And we'll get into some of those as we go ahead in future devotions, but just note this: every time God showed his glory, every time God showed his strength in a way that it was noticeable for God's people, it meant something. It meant that God did something. God did something that was going to help his people. And we could look at so many different examples in the Bible of when God did something to help his people, but for tonight I want you to focus on just one. Focus on the day that God's enemies were pounding nails through his skin. Focus on the day when Jesus was hanging on a cross. Focus on the day when Jesus looked out at the crowd and asked his Father to forgive them. Think of the day Jesus shed his blood. That's a day God did something. And it impacts your past, it impacts your future, and it impacts your present. That's something that God did on that day, guaranteed that your past does not own you, and it's not going to get the best of you. Whether that past is the reason for your present pain, or your present guilt, or for anything that's troubling, your past doesn't own you because God did something. That day is also the reason to look forward in our life with confidence, because it's the day that God did something. It's the day that God guaranteed that you were going to have a future with him, and the best kind of future. It's the day that he guaranteed that there's nothing in all creation that's going to separate you from the love of God, that one day you're going to be able to look back on your life and see definitively that there was nothing that happened, nothing that you experienced, nothing you did or didn't do that kept you from being with him in eternity, where God wipes every tear from your eye. All because God did something. He did something that impacts your past. He did something that impacts your future. And that means he did something that allows you to have peace in the present. Whatever it is that's causing you any kind of worry or anxiety, anything about your past, anything about your future, anything in your present, just remember, God did something. He did something for you. Let that be enough for tonight. Rest well tonight, my friends.